It's Friday, June 9. In the headlines, the public is urged to destroy mosquito breeding sites. In business news, Lasco Group to choose new chairman. Regionally, U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris visits the Bahamas. And internationally, EU ministers endorse a new migrant deal. In sports, PCB weighing options to postpone the home series against West Indies. And in entertainment news, Jamaican musicians represent on the soundtrack of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. This is the weekend news on PBC Jamaica. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. A flash flood watch is on for low-lying and flood-prone areas of St. Thomas, Kingston and St. Andrew, St. Catherine, Clarendon, Manchester, St. Elizabeth and Westmoreland, effective until 5 p.m. on Friday. That's the word from the Meteorological Service of Jamaica. It says in a press release that a broad trough across the Western Caribbean will linger through the weekend and will continue to generate unstable weather conditions across the island. Jamaicans can expect moderate rainfall along with periods of thunderstorms occurring mainly across southern parishes. The forecast is for mostly cloudy conditions with periods of rainfall to continue across the island, especially over southern parishes. Additionally, due to the extended period of rainfall and high ground saturation, landslides are likely. A flash flood watch means that flash flooding is possible and residents are advised to take precautionary measures. Keep informed by listening to further releases from the Meteorological Service and be ready for quick action if flooding is observed or if a warning is issued. The public is being advised to be on alert for dengue and other mosquito-borne illnesses following periods of rainfall. Medical Officer for Health in the Eastern Region, Dr. Tamara Henry, says teams have been hosting sessions in schools to sensitize students about how to search and destroy mosquito breeding sites. Mosquitoes usually breed in places where water accumulates and becomes stagnant, such as old tires, bottles, basins, drums, or garbage bins. Empty water from these sources and keep them dry. Secure cover water drums with mesh to prevent mosquitoes from entering. Ms. Henry's advice is nothing new. In fact, here's a very informative feature that was done by the Jamaica Information Service to jog your memory on where and how to search and destroy mosquito sites.
Mosquitoes are undoubtedly annoying, with their irritating sound and stinging bites. But there are more compelling reasons we'd rather not have them around. Several species are carriers of diseases and a threat to human health. Of most significance to Jamaica is the Aedes aegypti mosquito, known to transmit dengue fever, chikungunya, yellow fever, and the Zika virus. Only female mosquitoes bite, doing so to get the blood they need for egg production. And therefore, only female mosquitoes transmit these viruses.
The Aedes aegypti mosquito is what we call a timid feeder. So she's easily disturbed when feeding. It means that in one night, she may feed on several persons before she takes her complete blood meal. Each time she feeds, she secretes that substance. And in the secretion of the substance, the pathogen is passed on. So in one night, one female Aedes aegypti mosquito is able to infect more than one person.
The female Aedes aegypti mosquito is a prolific breeder.
One female Aedes aegypti mosquito is able to lay up to 200 eggs each time she lays her eggs. So one mosquito can populate an entire area.
The lifespan of the mosquito is around 3 weeks, and the entire cycle from egg to adult can occur in as little as 7 to 8 days. Female mosquitoes are ready to mate within a few hours after reaching their adult stage, and males are usually ready within 24 hours.
This mosquito prefers cleaner waters for the female mosquitoes. She will lay her eggs in water, and for the Aedes, it will be water which is in and around the household.
So while there are a number of things we can and should do to prevent being bitten, the most effective way to prevent the spread of diseases by these mosquitoes is to prevent their breeding.
The Aedes aegypti mosquito is a mosquito that breeds in a containerized environment. They do not breed in rivers and drains, but they breed in containers that can be found in and around where persons dwell. So come with us and let us show you some of those breeding sites. This is a typical dish drainer that we find in most homes. And under most dish drainer is a tray that collects the water that comes off the dishes. And believe it or not, we have found breeding in several homes in these dish drainers. Yes. You can see that we have water that has settled. If this water does not evaporate quickly, it can lend itself to the breeding of the Aedes aegypti mosquito. So you not only have to empty the dish drainer, but you have to scrub to remove those eggs. This is the typical saucer that we will find under a plant. The rain has recently fallen, it has collected water, and right now it is steaming with the Aedes aegypti mosquito. Do you have some of these in your home? Aedes aegypti prefers water that is a little bit on the cleaner side, and it's found in a shaded environment. So what should we do with something like this? It's quite simple. You need to throw away the water. And if these containers are not being used, you have to keep them turned down so they're not able to collect water. If you have them under your plants, we ask that you bore holes in them so that it will not collect water. Do you have these in your homes? We find these in a lot of hotels and business places. And we ask those persons, check these bird baths or any ornamental things like these you have in your garden to ensure that they are not breeding the Aedes aegypti mosquito. There are things like this thrown down in persons' backyard. Old equipment, old furniture, old fixtures that are taken from homes, especially during construction. These are also able to hold water. And if they're holding water and sit for a while in the environment, they will also breed mosquitoes. And so we have found breeding in wheelbarrows, in old refrigerator, in old sinks such as this one. And we ask persons, if you're throwing out these, please ensure that they are positioned in such a way that they will not collect water.
Many persons, when they do have their drums, most times drums do not have any covers. So there is a mesh cover which is so designed to replace the missing covers. It is lightweight, and what we do is just simply slip it over, and the mesh is so designed mosquitoes will not be able to go through this mesh to get to the water. So this is the ideal way. One of the benefits also of this mesh is that even when rain does fall, water will go right through it. This is a typical example where this we have is a plastic drum and we have a metal cover here which is not designed for this. Whilst in some practice the intent is good, there may be occasions in which it does not fit or sit properly, and as a result you still have openings where mosquitoes can go right through and breed.
Labour Minister Pernell Charles Jr. will be getting a first-hand look at the working conditions of Jamaican farm workers in Canada. Jamaican farm workers have complained that they are being made to live and work under substandard conditions. Mr. Charles says he'll be meeting with Canadian officials overseeing the program, farmers, employers, and liaison officers. Minister Charles also plans to meet with the High Commissioner to discuss the scope of the observation across more farms and the need to get a greater understanding of the issues that may not have been captured in the recent fact-finding mission. Justice Minister Delroy Chuck says the Integrity Commission is overstepping its jurisdiction. Speaking at this week's post-cabinet press briefing, Minister Chuck expressed disappointment with the comments made by the Integrity Commission about certain government officials. He emphasized its basic role.
It is an anti-corruption agency, but it is now making itself to be an oversight body for good governance, for accountability. That's the Auditor General's jurisdiction. What it amounts to leadership, good leadership. That's not the work, with due respect, of the Integrity Commission. We want the Integrity Commission to expose corruption in this country. Those who are engaged in corruption must be identified, apprehended, and charged.
He particularly took issue with the commission implying that failure to sign its leadership code of conduct is an indication of a lack of commitment by officials to operate in the interest of good governance. During the post-cabinet press brief, Information Minister Robert Morgan accused the Integrity Commission of misleading the public in relation to its push for government ministers to sign its leadership code of conduct. Mr. Morgan said to date he has not received any copy of the Code of Conduct from the Integrity Commission.
I find the statement to be rude, repugnant, and offensive. Let me say, like Minister Morgan, I have never seen this Code of Conduct. I don't know what is in it, so I cannot really comment on it. But let me say that from I was a teenager, I determined to live by Christian principles. So signing any code of conduct won't help me to live better.
Time now for the business report with Danita Rodney.
Welcome to PBCJ's Extended Business Report. I'm Danita Rodney. The boards of the listed LASCO companies will meet separately next Thursday to decide who will be the next chairman of the affiliated entities in the wake of the passing of group founder Lascelles Chin, who held the position at all three companies: LASCO Manufacturing Limited, LASCO Distributors Limited, and LASCO Financial Service Limited. Small and medium-sized business owners can now access financial support through the recently launched Growth and Expansion of MSMEs through Innovation and Capacity Building Program, the Gemini Program. It's the brainchild of the Development Bank of Jamaica, the DBJ. General Manager of the DBJ, Hugh Grant, says Gemini is designed to support the growth and development of micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, MSMEs, enabling them to improve their operational efficiency, enhance their market competitiveness, and have access to finance.
This program, as highlighted, is a strategic partnership between the DBJ and the JBDC, and especially its network of small business development centers, SBDCs, that are spread across the island. MSMEs onboarded on this program will be assessed. A work plan will be created by the JBDC to support and move each MSMEs along the business life cycle.
The DBJ will provide funding to the JBDC to cover a percentage of the capacity building support to the MSME.
MSMEs will benefit from closer guidance, hand-holding, and training in addition to the specific needed grant support. For example, their business plan, their financial statement, or digital services. Under the Gemini program, DBJ and the JBDC will also work to expand its registry of consultants, business development services, to better provide the diverse skill set and services needed by the MSMEs.
Interested parties can get more information and apply at www.pbcjamaica.com. Now for your market updates. In foreign exchange trading for Thursday, June 8th, the US dollar sold for an average of $155.60. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $116.95. The pound sterling traded for $195.11. And the euro sold for an average of $167.71. In JSE trading, the JSE index declined by 3,811 points. The junior market index declined by 1 point. The combined market index declined by 3,572 points. And the All Jamaican Composite Index declined by 4,628 points. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 112 stocks, of which 34 advanced, 54 declined, and 24 traded firm. Stocks advanced for Access Financial Services Limited, Cargo Handlers Limited, and Caribbean Assurance Brokers Limited. Stocks declined for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited Verbal Preference, and AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited. Trading firm were Community and Workers of Jamaica CCU Deferred Share, Apple Limited 6% Preferred Shares due 2024, and First Rock Real Estate Investments Limited USD. The overall volume leaders were Supreme Ventures Limited and Wigton Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares with over 3 million units, and Trans Jamaican Highway Limited with over 2 million units. In regional stocks, in Trinidad and Tobago, zero securities traded. On the Barbados Stock Exchange, First Caribbean International Bank was the volume leader with over 2,000 shares. They were followed by Insurance Corporation of Barbados Limited and Emera Deposit Receipt, which traded 520 shares respectively. In regional business, Guyana's national debt is currently 12% of the country's gross domestic product, one of the lowest figures in the world. Vice President Dr. Barak Jadeo clarified on Thursday.
So that is something that doesn't come out. I see a lot of people talking about it. Our capacity to repay is vastly enough. And when we borrow to invest in things that matter. We can pay it back easily. Our health system, the roads, the power plants, the ports, things that are capital. We don't borrow to eat. We don't borrow to eat. We borrow to build the capital stock of this country so our people can benefit. They can use that to create new industries and new jobs, because that's the foundation, the ports, the power plants, the roads, the other type of infrastructure, modern water systems, the ICT system, better government services around the country. We borrow for greater security.
In market data for oil prices rose and were broadly flat on the week as concern over oil demand growth was balanced by Saudi output cuts. Brent crude futures rose 36 cents to $76.32 a barrel, while West Texas Intermediate crude was up 34 cents at $71.63. And that was the business report on PBCJ. I'm Danita Rodney. Back to you, Simone.
Thanks, Danita. In regional news, Thursday, June 8 was a historic day for the Bahamas as the United States Vice President Kamala Harris arrived in the country early afternoon. She met with Caribbean leaders to discuss climate change and Haiti. Jamila Missick has that story.
Just before 12:30 p.m. today, a U.S. Air Force jet carrying United States Vice President Kamala Harris landed at Odyssey Aviation. The special occasion marks the first time a sitting U.S. Vice President has visited the Bahamas. The 49th U.S. VP also traveling to the Bahamas during Caribbean American Heritage Month. Shortly after landing, Harris made her way onto the tarmac, greeted by U.S. Chargé d'Affaires Usha Pitts and Foreign Affairs Minister Fred Mitchell, along with other government officials. She then performed an inspection of the Guard of Bahamian Armed Forces. Vice President Harris also meeting with a number of adoring individuals ahead of her high-level meeting at the Atlantis Resort. Students Kaya Ramsey, Shanario Grant, and Shania Higgs were among the group who got to see the Vice President. The students say the experience of being up close and personal with such a powerful world leader is one they'll never forget.
To say the least, it was a very enlightening experience, to be less than 5 feet away from such a powerful woman and a black woman at that. It was really great and definitely a life-lasting memory.
I know that seeing someone like her at her rank that's an experience that I think all Bahamian children should experience, and for me that was a once-in-a-lifetime thing.
And I expected to be more from a sideline, but we actually got to see her and we got to wave at her and it felt like personal.
Vice President Harris, a proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, was also greeted by some of her Bahamian sorority sisters.
It's an amazing opportunity to have Vice President Kamala Harris come to the Bahamas, and we were delighted to have her here. because it's an extension of us.
Now, this visit is historic as Vice President Harris is the highest-ranking U.S. official to visit the Bahamas since its independence in 1973. And as the Bahamas celebrates this year 50 years of independence, it also marks 50 years of diplomatic relations between both countries.
A commitment from the U.S. of more than $100 million in new assistance for the Caribbean region. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris made the announcement as U.S. Caribbean leaders met in Nassau, Bahamas on Thursday.
The U.S. Vice President gave a list of new activities to be undertaken that address security and firearms trafficking, the need for an enhanced diplomatic presence in the Eastern Caribbean, the crisis in Haiti, and the U.S.-Caribbean partnership to address the climate crisis 2030. She confirmed the Biden-Harris administration's commitment to disrupting firearms trafficking in the Caribbean by interdicting illicit shipments of firearms and ammunition and by holding offenders accountable and bringing them to justice. The Department of State is also supporting the recently established Regional Crime Gun Intelligence Unit in Trinidad and Tobago, which facilitates collaboration and cooperation among regional and international law enforcement agencies. There are plans to establish a regional forensic center of excellence in St. Lucia, in addition to continued support to forensic laboratories in the Bahamas and the Dominican Republic. The announcements are in line with statements made when Mrs. Harris visited Trinidad and Tobago earlier this year. Then a commitment was also made to working with Trinidad and Tobago as a regional leader in energy security and to advance shared carbon emissions reduction goals.
In international news, ministers from across the European Union have reached a tentative agreement that could see a major shift in the bloc's migration policy. The possible accord would change how asylum seekers are processed at borders and how they are relocated across Europe. Al Jazeera's Dominic Kane reports.
Few issues divide the EU more than migration. At its heart lie the questions of who should look after the people who claim asylum in the bloc and what to do with those whose claims fail. For years, those countries where most people arrive have called for help from other member states, but many have not wanted to help. And with more than 80,000 asylum seekers arriving so far this year, the pressure has grown. So, the Swedish presidency of the EU and European Commission have suggested a two-part deal, which they hope will help border countries with the rising number of asylum seekers arriving and limit those migrants' ability then to move without permission inside the EU.
There is also a spirit of cooperation and solidarity between member states. And this is worth so much because that means, and we show it also when we actually activated the Temporary Protection Directive. When we are in this spirit, when we trust each other, we are so strong.
In effect, the proposal would see member states that don't want to host more irregular migrants paying other member states to host them. It's estimated a five-figure sum per migrant has been discussed. Even then, some Eastern European countries have been sceptical, but the risks of not reaching a deal were spelt out by the German government, which itself was in two minds about the deal.
Ich kämpfe dafür, dass wir ein Europa der offenen Grenzen haben.
I'm fighting to ensure that we have a Europe of open borders. If we fail, that's the wrong signal. This would lead to national isolation. I don't want to do that. I want to keep the borders open. I would like us to have a common European understanding of human rights standards, including at all external borders.
Germany already operates controls on some of its borders, notably with Austria and with Poland, as here, where the Oder River forms the natural frontier. Some European governments are wary of extending this policy further and hope what's been proposed by the EU Council will prevent that. Dominic Kane, Al Jazeera, Luxembourg.
In sports, the Pakistan Cricket Board, PCB, is weighing options to postpone the home series against West Indies, slated for February and March in 2024, which is clashing with the next edition of PSL.
The PCB has also requested the Emirates Cricket Board to pull back their ILT20 league by 10 days to avoid overlapping. Pakistan, according to ICC's FTP, are scheduled to host the West Indies for 2 tests and 3 T20Is early next year, which has also been the window for conducting the PSL since 2016. In the last PSL Governing Council meeting, it was affirmed that the PCB can sacrifice the home series. The board has opened up discussions with several stakeholders, now in a bid to have a clear window for the next PSL. If the PCB conducts the West Indies series after Ramzan, which is after the second week of April, they could face another challenge. With the IPL scheduled for April-May, several West Indies players might be unavailable for the bilateral series in Pakistan. The PCB hasn't said anything on when the series could be rescheduled, but there were discussions on the possibility of playing the home series during the month of Ramadan, March to April.
Time now for the entertainment news with Alicia Steele.
What's up, PBCJ Nation? It's your girl Alicia, and I'm here to bring you some hot, fresh news. That's right, our Jamaican musicians are representing us on the new Spider-Man movie soundtrack, and Naomi Cowan just dropped a collab with Idris Elba. Stay tuned for more deets. Jamaican artists and producers shine on the soundtrack of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. The highly anticipated sequel to the 2018 Oscar-winning animated film, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, features a star-studded soundtrack with contributions from 3 Jamaican artists and 1 Jamaican producer. Dancehall singer Shensea, Jamaican-American rapper Beam, music producer The Genius, and recording artist Toyan all have tracks on the soundtrack, which was produced by Grammy-winning producer Metro Boomin. Shensei and Puerto Rican rapper Mike Towers team up for the track Infamous, while Beam, Toyan, and Nigerian Afrobeat star Wizkid collaborate on Link Up. The Genius produces these tracks: Take It to the Top, which features Becky G and Nigerian singer Ira Star. The soundtrack also features songs from A$AP Rocky, James Blake, Lil Wayne, Offset, Swally, and Lil Uzi Vert. Across the Spider-Verse tells the story of Brooklyn's friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, Miles Morales, as he reunites with Gwen Stacy and travels across the multiverse to meet a team of spider people who are tasked with protecting its existence. The film has received rave reviews from critics and audience alike and is currently playing in theaters. British actor and disc jockey Idris Elba, along with his DJ colleague Toddler T, enlisted the talent of Jamaican singer-songwriter Naomi Cowan for their track We Run the Area. The release also features General Levy, an English DJ of Trinidadian descent. The song was released via Elba's label Seville Wallace and Toddler T's Bell Brothers. The accompanying music video was shot in Jamaica and London by directors Naughty Cuts, Desmond Dakura, and Abo Raj, using mostly an iPhone 14, highlighting the DIY and collaborative nature of the 4 music artists. Toddler T expressed that the track was a career high for him, while Elba praised the track as a nod to the Junglist massive. Cowan, who launched her recording career in 2015, is the daughter of Tommy Cowan, a member of the rocksteady group The Jamaicans. Toddler T, a pivotal music industry tastemaker in the UK, has collaborated with various artists such as Skepta, Craig David, and Roots Maneuver. Elba founded Seven Wallace in 2015 as a means to break boundaries in hip-hop and dance music, releasing tracks with an impressive roster of talented artists. Hey, before we wrap, Shensei has new music out. Have you seen the visualize? Thanks for tuning in to the show. I'd like to give a special shout out to Hair Addiction Collections for making my hair slay throughout the show today. They've got the best wigs and they're affordable too. Check them out on Instagram at Hair Addiction Collections. And remember to live an entertaining lifestyle.
Thanks, Alicia. And with that, we end the weekend news on PBCJ. Thank you so much for watching.